8 years ago, Breath of the Wild graced our Nintendo Switch systems as a launch title on March 3rd, and we have never looked back. Gaming has changed forever for both Nintendo and the entire industry at large. Then later on, in 2023, we finally got the long-awaited sequel to Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and it really had a lot of controversy and still does to this day. But I personally, on this channel, have held the position that this game is objectively better than Breath of the Wild, and I still hold that opinion after playing Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom once more on Nintendo Switch 2 Edition. And Nintendo decided that we wouldn't even have to worry about the debate, wouldn't even have to worry about which game is better or which one they think would be perceived as the better one, because they decided for the Nintendo Switch 2's launch title, Mario Kart World would obviously be the big one, but to scratch that single-player first-party Nintendo itch, you could get Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom now at 4K 60 FPS. Wow, what an amazing upgrade. And not only that, Nintendo included a little bit of a bonus. They gave us a new way of playing this game with the Zelda Notes on the Nintendo Switch app. So now here we are today with the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and it is very odd in my opinion how much the Zelda team has cared about updating these games and making them as best as possible for modern hardware compared to a lot of the other games in other franchises that Nintendo owns. If you really think about it, Mario has not gotten this same treatment. Mario has not at all gotten a lot of remasters or HD ports or updated visuals to their games in the past. They really just kind of overlook them and move on to the new ones. But especially with the 3D Zelda games, I see an incredible trend of game preservation and just updating visuals to make the game the best experience possible for the consumer and to give people a new chance to play these games. Zelda has a long history of this, especially lately. We have Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom now on the Switch 2 upgraded, and they're going to look as good as they possibly could considering the hardware. We have Skyward Sword HD, which came out a few years ago on the Nintendo Switch. Then we had Wind Waker and Twilight Princess both getting HD ports to the Wii U. Then Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time both got a 3D version on the Nintendo 3DS. Every single 3D Zelda game has gotten a new installment in the series. They have updated these games on every new platform whenever they've gotten the chance to, and I personally love it, and I would love to see other games in these franchises do the same thing. Mario 64 got the 64 DS version, but that was really only created to make sure people knew when you were buying a DS, this was what you were getting into. You can play big console games on the go, and that was obviously something big. But of course, the only reason they did that was because of the DS, not because the Mario team wanted to. Mario Sunshine, it released on the GameCube and did not get a single updated version until Mario 3D All-Stars later on the Nintendo Switch. Then we had Mario Galaxy and Galaxy 2. Neither game got an update. Neither game came to any other console, except obviously for Galaxy, which came with that 3D All-Stars package, but I don't really count that package because it was an anniversary thing, not necessarily a we want to make this game accessible to you thing, if that makes sense. Especially considering that package was completely and totally limited. You could only buy it for like half a year and then you couldn't get it anymore, which really shows their colors. Mario 3D Land or 3D World. 3D World did get ported to the Nintendo Switch, but really only because of the anniversary of Mario and because of Bowser's Fury, and also just because they wanted to put everything possible on the Switch because it was their biggest console ever. And so looking at the Zelda series back here with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, one of the biggest parts about this game that really speaks volumes to me is how much the Zelda team truly cares about making sure you get the best experience possible with their games. They have so much care and love for the series and so much detail-oriented philosophies in which games they decide to port over, which games they decide to upgrade, and as to why. With Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom on the Nintendo Switch 2, these games are as amazing as ever. I have played both for an extended period of time to make sure I was getting used to these games and seeing exactly what they had to offer. Because on launch day, these were two of the biggest games that Nintendo marketed. These were some of the games that people really wanted, and Nintendo wanted us to know these were new games. And if they're going to market these as new games, as new upgraded games, I am going to review them as such. especially considering the high bar that Nintendo Switch 2 Edition labels are going to carry moving forward. Mario Party Jamboree has a bunch of new content and new visuals. Kirby and the Forgotten Land has a bunch of new content and new visuals. Now, those games are not out yet, and we don't know to what extent those games have over Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom here, but we can know for sure that when Nintendo markets it as a new game, sells it for $80 or $70 with a new Switch 2 Edition logo, it means high quality to them. So starting off with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, these games are as beautiful as ever, especially now. The art style carried it back then, and the graphical fidelity was really a weakness for both the Nintendo Switch and the Wii U, obviously for Breath of the Wild, because that game was built from the ground up with the Wii U being its primary console. That was the intention with this game, and then they decided later on in development they wanted it to be a launch title for the Nintendo Switch, and the rest is history. But playing Breath of the Wild again really does remind me, this was supposed to be a Wii U game, and that was 2 generations ago at this point. Now I am playing this game on my Nintendo Switch 2 in 4K 60 FPS, and it runs perfectly. It is a beautiful game, and it is almost uncanny going from hundreds and hundreds of hours of Nintendo Switch Breath of the Wild playthroughs to now this. This feels different, and it feels better. It looks better. It is so gorgeous, and I cannot believe I am playing Nintendo games that look this good. It just has me frothing at the mouth, wondering what will this Zelda team be able to do with a new game, a new concept built from the ground up with this hardware in mind. I'm frothing at the mouth. I was on the Great Plateau in Breath of the Wild, and I am climbing up the big mountain that takes you up to the Stasis Shrine, and I look over in the distance to the Gerudo region where I see those like tannish pinkish mountains, and I look and wow, the textures did not load in very well. And it's not that Nintendo Switch 2 can't handle it, it's just that that's how the game was initially coded. They had it so where these things wouldn't pop up, that the textures wouldn't be more detailed until you got closer. But because this game is so much clearer and you can see things in the distance so much further, it really can hinder that experience at times for me to look at that mountain and think, oh, this was a Wii U game, wasn't it? That is not a detriment in a lot of ways, because obviously the game runs better and is smoother, but it is an unintended consequence of this game being better overall, is the fact that you look out in the distance and you will see things spawning in left and right, not because the Switch 2 can't handle it, but that's just how the game was coded. They had all of these different things pop up as soon as you get closer to them, and once you get even closer, you can see it look even more grimy because it was developed to make sure that once you get closer, it pops in more and more and not all at once. So it's not as jarring as a game like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but it does make me think, oh wow, this kind of feels like those Pokemon games in a sense, because now the hardware is better and things look better. So when this game runs as good as it does, I don't expect to see those pop-in things. I don't expect to see textures unable to load in. That feels a little grimy to me. And for whatever reason, these were things that I was a little bit more willing to accept and look over on the Nintendo Switch, because the hardware obviously was what it is. And the Switch 2 is just not that. For this to be marketed as a new game, for it to be the ultimate experience, I am a little bit disappointed at how many graphical things can stand out to you like that. But they are few and far between. I am not at all criticizing this game's overall look. The game is gorgeous. The art style really is beautiful. And to see that art style finally mesh with the graphical power of the Switch 2, it's just stunning. And I can't believe my eyes. Now, Tears of the Kingdom doesn't have as many problems with that in my opinion. Breath of the Wild was built from the ground up for the Wii U, and then later on transitioned to the Nintendo Switch and reaped the benefits of the Switch being a more powerful piece of console. With the Tears of the Kingdom game, of course, it was the same engine, right? They used the Breath of the Wild engine that was built from the ground up for the Wii U, so it's essentially a Wii U engine that was built for the Nintendo Switch, and they were able to optimize it and use that hardware to make it look better, to make it run better in a lot of ways. Korok Forest was a nightmare in Breath of the Wild, and on the Nintendo Switch, even before the Switch 2 edition, they were able to fix that with Tears of the Kingdom. Korok Forest no longer ran in 20 frames per second. They got more used to the hardware. They were able to exploit each and every feature that they could. They just knew what they were doing the second time around. And Tears of the Kingdom looks even better than Breath of the Wild in my opinion because of that, especially considering there is so many more options, so many more quality of life features in Tears of the Kingdom that just are jarring to not be present in Breath of the Wild. Playing Breath of the Wild first was the right move in my opinion, because I have played that game hundreds of hours, sure, but Tears of the Kingdom was my most recent experience. I played that game for hundreds of hours as well and got used to that world, those mechanics, the way Link moves around in that game. And in that game, there are so many little details that I missed in Breath of the Wild deeply. Replaying Breath of the Wild again made me think, wow, Tears of the Kingdom really is better in just about every single way from a gameplay standpoint. All of the runes are rendered useless in that game because you think of magnesis, and I picked up every single magnetic object and thought, why can't I stick these together? Why can't I use these to get over there? Why can't I do what I could do in Tears of the Kingdom? Stasis is not as important anymore because the rewind feature is just more helpful. I'm not going to be supercharging anything really in that game. I don't need that ability because I have so many more options to get there. The bombs are completely useless now because, well, in Tears of the Kingdom, I can just fuse them to anything. My weapons, my shields, my arrows, I have bombs, and I can throw bombs in Tears of the Kingdom. You can't throw items in Breath of the Wild. And don't even get me started on Cryonis because that was already kind of useless in Breath of the Wild. Everyone agreed back then you really didn't need to use any sort of ice abilities unless the puzzle said so. And once again, we can see in Tears of the Kingdom, you just get any sort of ice item and you can do the same thing except better, have more options, even down to the most minute details, such as if I have too many items or I have too many weapons and I open a chest and it says inventory full. In Breath of the Wild, I have to walk up to the chest, the animation plays, it says, this is the item you get, cool, I want that item, okay, but I can't get it because now it says your inventory's full. The chest shuts and it wants you to go into your inventory and replace it yourself. Now in Tears of the Kingdom, simply from the little menu that pops up from the chest, you can drop whatever item you want to replace it with whatever's in that chest. Little things like that will save you hundreds of hours in the long run. I am doubling down on my opinion that Tears of the Kingdom is better than Breath of the Wild in so many ways, especially in gameplay. It just is. It just has so many better ways of playing, so many better ways of thinking, and allows you to stretch those creative muscles even more. Now, Breath of the Wild always has its place in the community, right? It's going to be one of the best games ever in terms of looking back, nostalgia, all that. It was the first ever to do what it did, and Tears of the Kingdom really took that foundation and made a better product in my opinion. But the big difference here that I think is actually justifiable and has skewed a lot of people's minds, the story in Breath of the Wild is better than Tears of the Kingdom in my opinion. It just is. The developers wanted to make sure this game was going to be even more fun from a gameplay standpoint, and I don't think they considered what the story implications were going to be until much later in that development process, and so they kind of decided to just copy whatever Breath of the Wild did. Okay, there were memories in Breath of the Wild, so let's do Zelda memories in Tears of the Kingdom. Okay, there were 4 areas of the map to go to and 4 things to do, so let's do that again, right? Oh, there were shrines in Breath of the Wild, let's do them again, but a little bit different this time, and a little better maybe? Just a little bit more out of your way, I guess? And of course, the story beats were not as good in Tears of the Kingdom as they were in Breath of the Wild. Even just talking to the old man on the Great Plateau, looking around, seeing this place is so desolate, watching this world tell me its story without it being thrust into my face. And finally, once I figure it out a little bit for myself and am able to see what is going on and find all 4 shrines, the old man reveals himself to be the king. And in an amazing cutscene, he tells you what happened, who you are, who he is, why he can't do anything, how powerless he feels. And it is a true connection. It is one of the best cutscenes in the game, in my opinion, because it establishes a motivation. You are Link, and you have a duty to protect Zelda, and you want to save her, and you want to do it now, not even just because you have to, because it's a game and that's the point, but because you care about the king. He helped you. He did a lot for you on the Great Plateau, and he really helped you get back on your feet, and he was waiting there for you for over 100 years. And obviously later on in the game, we will see cutscenes in which he mistreated Zelda, and we'll read his diary and Zelda's diary to find that they had a tumultuous relationship. And once she left that last time to go to the spring to try to activate her powers, he decided once she left that once she got back, if it didn't work, he would do his best to be a father first and foremost, not a king. And he never got that opportunity to do so, and that breaks my heart. It is such a beautiful story, and Breath of the Wild does a much better job of telling it than Tears of the Kingdom does. And I think that is why a lot of people think Breath of the Wild is better than Tears, because the gameplay mechanics, you just can't argue to me that the gameplay mechanics in Breath of the Wild are better than Tears of the Kingdom. But if you think of it as nostalgia, okay, this was the first game, and I love the first game. Then also the story was better, it connected with people, and even then people were saying Breath of the Wild story wasn't as good, and I agree, it could have been better in a lot of ways, but it just is better than Tears of the Kingdom. And I will say, for both games, neither have lost their magic, and I don't think they ever will. And now that these games both run at 4K, 60 FPS, both of them have zero stutters, both of them you can push their games to the absolute limit of the capabilities that they give you, and yet it will still be at a rock solid graphical fidelity. Man, this is amazing. This is the best way now to play these games. And with a lot of Switch 1 games that you can play on the Switch 2 that didn't even get free upgrades, one of the things that they really marketed to people was the load times. And oh boy, does these games really have great load times. And I have saved so much time from just not having to worry about the loading. I remember in the older games, sometimes I would think, oh, I could teleport there and it would save me a little bit of time, but I would be staring at a screen for about 30 seconds. And in these games, holy crap, it takes about 10 seconds, if that sometimes, to get from one side of the map to the other. But these games are phenomenal. You know that. You've played them. You've heard video essays ad nauseum. I am not here to tell you that these games are worth buying. What I am here to discuss is the Switch 2 edition specifically of these games, and I have been doing that so far. But now let's dive a little bit more into the Zelda Notes aspect of this, because this will probably be what makes most people want to buy. If you aren't a big graphics guy, then you're not going to care about this. And if you are a big graphical guy, you're going to want this. So that's pretty much all there is to it from the gameplay side of things, but the Zelda Notes can add a little bit more content for those who are interested in having a phone app, because if you don't have your phone and you don't have this app and you don't want to worry about all that, and if you just don't even care, then this won't add much to you. But the main feature, in my opinion, here is the voice memories. Now, you will be able to go and navigate from different spots all over the map. There are over 150 voice memories in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. You walk up to random locations, and then on your phone, Robert will speak, Zelda will speak, all these different people will give you little insights to that area and what they think about it, and it's typically right before the events of the game take place. So in Breath of the Wild, there was one cutscene in which she was like, man, do the goddess even hear my prayers? And it was like before all of the events of the game took place. So that is where it is in the timeline, and it's just so fascinating. For all the Zelda lore heads out there, this is going to be a treat for you. For people who have been wanting to 100% these games but don't have a good way of doing it, or don't want to go through all the trouble of looking up Korok seed tutorials or whatever, this will tell you every single collectible you need. Everything you could ever imagine is on these Zelda apps. You can go and it will navigate to where it is. It'll show you on the map where it is. You will be able to go wherever it is the thing is you're looking for. And in Tears of the Kingdom, I never finished all the shrines because I just couldn't find them all, and the map was so large and I just didn't have enough time to explore both the sky and the depths on top of the overworld itself, and I just never found them all. So with this, I am going to be able to complete every single Tears of the Kingdom shrine for the first time, and I'm very excited about that. And for once, I finally feel like it might actually be something I would be interested in, to complete every single Korok, to actually 100% this game, because now it is just so easy. You turn on your phone and boom, it connects to your Switch 2, and you get all sorts of goodies for that. And that is one thing I will say, I will commend them. It is so easy to do this. If you already have the app like I did, or if you just download it, it just goes to the Zelda Notes and you click on whichever game you're playing and it connects, and boom, you don't have to do much of anything else except for making sure the first time you do it, it's not disabled. You have to go into the settings and activate Zelda Notes for it to connect, but it's very, very helpful. Obviously, there's voice memories, then there's the navigation tool I told you. It's pretty much like a GPS, in which there's this very calming voice that says, northeast, north, southeast, proceed. And it's like, it's really funny, because you're like in a game and you're playing on a GPS and it's like, what in the world? This feels funny, but it works, and it works very, very well. And then there's also a feature in which you can do a daily spin. You can get a different item every single day and it will go straight to your game, and you'll be able to use that right away. It'll be like 5 minutes of attack up and you'll be able to use that boost. There are a bunch of other features, including one where you can like send items to different games. So like if you are playing Breath of the Wild on your Switch 1 and you already have something valuable like the Master Sword maybe, or the Hylian Shield, I'm pretty sure all you have to do is just go to the app, upload it to that, and send it over to your game here and now. So if you don't want to wait to unlock the Hylian Shield, send it over. There are a bunch of abilities just like that that are pretty cool, but at the same time, there is one big flaw to this entire system. It uses your smartphone. Sure, this adds a bunch of quality of life features, it adds some really fun guides, some amazing lore opportunities with the voice memories, but it's on your phone. And it is very unfortunate that they couldn't have somehow incorporated this into the game itself, because they truly could have done that. It kind of makes me think that yes, they did want to incorporate Switch 2 editions for this. Yes, they wanted these games to look as good as possible and to be the best experience ever, but it also seemed like Nintendo decided for them that they were going to have to make something for the smartphone. Yeah, we're gonna revamp this whole app and we need you to make it something that people are gonna care about. So add a bunch of lore stuff, add a map system, add a voice guide system, add these cool features that should be in the game itself because we want people to download our app and use our app. And in the long run, I don't think anyone is really going to do that. Especially with big open world games like this where I am just wandering around and I am having fun and making my own fun and looking for things all on my own and exploring and not really paying attention to any sort of story or visual cues or audio cues. I will often put YouTube videos in the background of my playthroughs. It just helps me because I want to watch these videos and I also want to play the game, so I'll just do it at the same time to help save me some time. And it's pretty frustrating for me who like that and people who are also like that to have your phone and not be able to listen to anything else. And that's fine. And obviously that's how the games were intended to be played for the first time around, is for you to fully invest yourself in them. But for me, this is like the 5th or 6th time I have played Breath of the Wild and like the 3rd or 4th time I have finished Tears of the Kingdom. So if I want to listen to a podcast in the background, why can't I do that? Why do I have to have my smartphone out for me to look at all these features? And I understand, yes, this is something that they wanted to push, but it could be so much better if it was just in the game, especially the voice memories. A lot of these other features, sure, like it's going to be hard to incorporate some sort of in-game GPS. I get that. That could be annoying. But you already have the shrine sensor, right? Like it's a similar thing. But anyways, the voice memories, they could be incorporated into this game easily. You walk up to it and boom, it just does it because that's how the original games worked. You would have those real memories in which you would watch the cutscenes. And it doesn't have to be as big as that. It could have just been you walk up to it and then it starts playing if you've never played it before. And then once you go back to it, you can press it to have it play again and you can wander around and do the same thing. It just serves no purpose for me to have this on my phone, and I think it's going to be a detriment, and not a lot of people are going to want to do that or care about it. And if we really, really boil it down to the nitty-gritty, if this is the only new content, which pretty much it's the only new content, how in the world can you justify this price point or this logo? How in the world can you justify this standing next to Jamboree, in which all those things have a bunch of new modes and you can do stuff with the camera and you can do all kinds of new stuff with the actual game itself? And then Kirby and the Forgotten Land adds an entire new story quest and you can play all sorts of different levels, and it looks like it's going to be a big deal. The Switch 2 edition of some of these other newer games are going to be bigger deals as well. So why in the world would you have this be this way for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom? How can you compare both of them when it's not even content in the game itself? The only thing you're getting with the actual game itself and not having the app at all is a new save file and better graphics and better loading times, and that's it. And if I'm being so honest with you, for me personally, that would have been enough for me to spend $10 on an upgrade. That would have been enough for me to pay $70 for Breath of the Wild and $80 for Tears of the Kingdom, because I love both games, and if you were to play them for the first time, I would say those price points aren't that bad. $80 for Tears of the Kingdom is ridiculous in my opinion. $70 is where it should be, but I understand the pricing model. They have the base game and then the $10 for the visual updates and the extra content. But even with Breath of the Wild being $70, that doesn't include the DLC. And yes, the DLC is included in this graphical update. These games all look better. The DLC does look better, but it's not incorporated. You have to buy it extra. So if you want to get the full experience of Breath of the Wild, you're going to have to pay over $90. Which is kind of a slap in the face in my opinion. It truly is, because if you look back at all of even Nintendo's own history, if they re-release games, typically if there was DLC, it's included. The deluxe editions are included. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, for example, included all of those DLC tracks and courses and characters for free. It was $60 on the Wii U and it was $60 on the Nintendo Switch. I just really do not understand in the slightest why they decided to not give us the full package, to not give us the ultimate Breath of the Wild experience. It has been over 8 years, people. 8 years! This is a Wii U game. Why do we not have all of the DLC included? It's just unacceptable in my opinion. And of course, 35 million people bought Breath of the Wild, and a lot of those people will also get Switch 2s, and those people will pay about $10 for the upgrade, and that's not that bad. That's a good price point for the upgrade, and yet all of these other games are free. Mario Odyssey gets free visual updates. 3D World, Bowser's Fury, Scarlet and Violet all get free updates. So why am I paying $10 for visual updates when I am not even going to use most of the content on the smartphone, when most people aren't going to care about the smartphone. I'm essentially paying for a feature I will never use, and so are you if you get this game, because you're getting free visual updates for all of these other first-party games, which sets a precedent for them. If they don't add new content, in their minds, visual updates should be free. That's the precedent they're setting with this pricing model. With the Switch 2 editions, if there's new content, then they add the price point for both the update and the content. And this does not include any new content all on its own. If I put in Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition, I'm getting no new content until I pick up my phone and download an app, and that is ridiculous. So the Switch 2 editions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are a technical marvel. I love looking at both these games. They are amazing. Tears of the Kingdom is still an incredible experience that I can't believe actually ran on the Nintendo Switch and now feels like it is at home. It feels like these games are where they should have been the entire time. And yet, I am disappointed by the price point, the lack of features, the lack of actually incorporating very cool features into the game itself. It's just baffling to me, and I can't recommend this wholeheartedly to even the most hardcore of Zelda fans. If you have Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom on the Nintendo Switch, if you don't care about the app at all and the graphics weren't as big of a deal to you, this is a no-brainer for you not to get. If you care about graphics even a little bit, I think it's probably worth the investment, but still, it feels like a slap in the face because you can play Mario Odyssey at 60 FPS, 4K, for free. Scarlet and Violet for free. And they are charging you for these games specifically because of a phone app that you will likely never use after one time. Only you will know how much use you will get out of this. Only you know if those graphics are worth $10, because I'm sure for the hundreds and hundreds of hours one could put in this game, and for people who want to revisit it, this is the ultimate way to do it. This is the best way to revisit these games, but are you willing to shell out $10 to play essentially what should be a free upgrade? And I think that's disappointing, because what it tells me is that Nintendo just wanted to have 2 shiny Zelda boxes right next to their Switch 2 on launch day. It tells me they just wanted to manipulate the fandom and manipulate people who know Zelda is big to get people to buy Switch 2s. Oh, it's a new edition, right? I'm gonna go get that. I never played it. I saw this was a great game before. And sure, if you've never played it, this is probably worth the edition, and the graphical updates are worth $70 for these games. But still, it can be disappointing to see they really only use this to manipulate the market. They really only used this to make sure they had 2 Zelda games at launch and to make sure everyone was excited about that. And if you go to the store and you don't see any of this, you don't know about it, and you see these new Zelda games and you're excited to play them and you paid full price for them, baby. Oh boy, did you pay full price for them. These games are amazing. I love both of them. I will always recommend these games to people, and of course, this is upsetting to me to see the price point and to see their lack of consistency and just to see them shoehorn in these features to make sure people would use the stuff that they're never going to use. But still, these games are amazing, and if you want them, buy them. They're worth the money. They are absolutely worth every cent. These games are huge. They have so much to offer, and you can play these games for the rest of the year and still find new stuff. If you even played no other games besides these, you would never get bored. And that makes it all the more disappointing that they couldn't add any more actual content to the games themselves. Why doesn't Tears of the Kingdom have a master mode? Why doesn't Tears of the Kingdom have a lot of these features Breath of the Wild does, and vice versa? It just feels a little baffling to me, and that is upsetting. But that is the end of my review, so thank you to making it to the end of the video. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's content. Click that notification bell to know exactly when I upload all of my videos, and consider joining my membership program to get early access to these videos and help support the channel at large. Click on the left side of the screen if you want to see my review of the Nintendo Switch 2 itself, and click on the right side of the screen if you want to see a playlist about all things Switch 2. Thank you so much once again for making it to the end of the video. You are phenomenal. I hope you have yourself an amazing day. This has been Ray's Nintendo Talk. I have been Ray, and I will see you all in the next video.